You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Drone, shot of my yacht. It's all I got. I'm all alone on the water. Drone, shot of my yacht. It's all I got. I'm all alone on the water. Don't let me flex these specs.
And welcome to another episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul, and as always, with me today is the Flying Dutchman, Mr. Haye Castello. Haye, welcome to the show, man. I hope you were enjoying the song as much as I was.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome song. It's been stuck in my head for the last 2 days. That's how catchy it is. But I think it's spot on, and it brings a little humor into our day-to-day lives while being stuck at home and hiding for the coronavirus. So all good.
I love it. It's gonna be stuck in my head all day long. I really think that. So yeah, it's gonna be stuck in my head forever. But this song really marks a whole new time or a whole new era of the news show for Ask Drone U, even as I wake up late this morning. It has been exhausting, Haye, trying to keep up with the virus and really trying to pivot our company to survive. But that means this time has really caused a lot of pressure. It's caused a lot of changes to a lot of companies in the drone world. From DJI all the way to drone DJ. We are seeing changes that, well, again, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out, because how you react to all this is really going to showcase if you are going to, well, survive. That being said, Haye, it seems like in this new era of the news show, there's some news that you have. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I used to be with Drone DJ up until April 1st, basically, and then I launched my own new site, DroneXL, and it's been kind of funny in a way, because a lot of people thought I was joking and I was pulling a April Fool's joke. So yesterday I've been texting and emailing people saying like, no, this is for real, this is serious. Basically what happened is that with Drone DJ, we came to a point in time where we had different opinions about the way forward, and I think I value the freedom and creativity and as well as ownership and having my own site and then being able to push things forward in the way that I see fit. So in the end, we weren't really able to come to a solution, and this has been going on for the last 2 months or so. So I decided that it was time to start a new site and do things my way, basically.
Awesome. So it's the Flying Dutchman's way or the highway. It's good to know. Good to know. But Haye, I'm happy for you, and I'm glad that you're having a smooth transition, because, my friend, you have a gift. So I think a lot of people really enjoy reading your pieces, and I think everyone thinks of Drone DJ as you. So to see you transition into your own space, I think is awesome, and it's going to be really awesome to watch you grow and watch you flourish. So.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time being part of the 9to5 Mac group, and they have some really awesome sites there as well. So I learned quite a bit working with those guys. I learned a lot more. I think just covering the drone industry and getting to know other people in the drone industry as well as a lot of our readers. Going forward, I'm super excited. DroneXL.co is my site. I decide where we're going to go and how we're going to do things and how we're going to grow that site. And I have no plans of going anywhere. So if you do enjoy my stories and you do enjoy listening to Paul's and my news show, then stick around, because there's a lot more coming down the pike.
There sure is a lot more coming down the pike. So let's get right into this week's news show. All right, Haye, this first piece of news, well, help us understand what is going on with the drone Shot of My Yacht. I'm just wondering, where did this come from? And how did all of this come about? I don't really get it. Help us understand. What is it all about?
Yeah, I think what's going on is that wealthy people with a lot of their money, of course, have more options available to them than, let's say, the everyday boy and girl or man and woman. And in this case, David Geffen, who's a music executive, or at least used to be, and I think he's worth about 8 billion, so he has plenty of money. He decided to take his yacht, the Rising Sun, and just leave the US and go to the Grenadines, park it somewhere beautiful, and just hang out on his yacht until this whole Corona thing blows over. And meanwhile, he's been posting images of his luxury lifestyle on his yacht on Instagram. And of course, as you can imagine, not everybody could appreciate that, because a lot of people, of course, don't have these kind of options and are stuck in their homes and dealing with working from home and kids and not being able to go outside. So the reality for a lot of people is very, very different than for this guy, David Geffen. So I think this last image that he showed on Instagram, where you can see his yacht like in the sunset in a beautiful environment, kind of pushed people over the edge. And John Mayer, a musician, took it on, and he made quickly this song showing all these images of this beautiful yacht while singing that it's a drone shot of my yacht. It's all I got. I'm all alone on the water. And it's a very catchy song. I'm sure we'll listen to it in a second.
Drone shot of my yacht. It's all I got.
It's been going viral online, and I think it's great. I mean, one, of course, it includes drones, but secondly, it's kind of the sign of our times that things are very stressful for many people dealing with this coronavirus. And then the contrast with a billionaire hanging out on his yacht in the middle of some exotic paradise is a very striking one indeed. So it's been fun to listen to, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it as well.
Yeah, it should be interesting. But that brings us into our next piece of drone news, which Haye and I may just flow from story to story, so bear with us during the wake of the virus. But Haye, I'm intrigued with all the news stories that you sent over. What kind of intrigued me the most was the fact that the Autel Evo 2 is now getting in the hands of some of the pilots who I'm guessing pre-ordered them. What's new on the street here?
Yeah, the latest what I've heard is that at least one friend of mine back in the Netherlands from Drone Watch, he's had his hands on the Evo 2 with the 8K camera for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I believe. But more importantly, here in the United States, I've seen posts on social media of people who have received the Evo 2 8K as of this week, which is a really good sign, because as you remember, back at CES in January of this year, we met up with people from Autel Robotics, and it seemed a little bit chaotic at the time. I mean, the booth that they had at the show was right across from DJI, but even weeks before CES, nobody knew that Autel was actually going to make it to the show. They managed to pull that off. They were there. They had a whole bunch of drones with them. And back then they said that the 8K version of the Evo 2 was going to be released and introduced to the US market about 4 to 6 weeks after CES. And then another month or so after, we would see the 1-inch sensor version with 6K video, as well as another one in a month later, combining the 8K sensor with a thermal sensor as well. So as you can imagine, a lot of people were very excited about these drones, about the price point, about the specs of these drones. And then it kind of became quiet. And what we later learned, of course, was that Autel was impacted by the coronavirus as well, just like pretty much any other drone company. But also that 2 key players within Autel had since been fired, supposedly because of mismanaging social media and the launch of the Evo 2 here in the United States, which is very unfortunate, of course. So we grew a little bit concerned about when and if these new drones would make it to the US market. The good news in that case is that it seems that it's actually happening right now, as we've seen the first posts on social media from people actually receiving these drones. And we're looking forward to getting this drone in the hands of more people. The first couple of times I flew it, you could tell that the connection between the drone and the remote controller wasn't quite perfect yet. I mean, you would occasionally lose the connection. It would reestablish itself, but it was something that needed to be improved. Based on what I know from the emails from Autel, that's something they worked on, and it seems that the newer models have had an update, and this appears no longer to be an issue. That will be a good thing for sure. So yeah, I'm excited to get my hands on the 8K or even the 6K version at this point and put it to the test and see how it flies now.
You know, going back to kind of the whole macro drone industry, and when you and I were talking about how DJI had their manufacturing issues. We didn't really see a new drone last year, at least one that's commercially viable. And we saw the Phantom come back, and it left this huge opening for a new manufacturer or a manufacturer to really come out and put out a competitive product that could really compete with DJI. But yet it seems like, you know, when we were excited at CES for all these new drones, do you think that maybe the delay in getting the drones out could affect the overall macro success of the company? Here's why I say this, Haye, and why I asked this question, meaning, you know, over the last 2 months, or say 2.5 months, even 3 months from CES, if they were able to ship those drones and get them out, I wonder if that would have helped continue their propulsion forward, meaning they were selling drones, they were getting them out there, because I'm concerned now that with the 3-month delay that they've had in the wake of the coronavirus, when we know that sales are down elsewhere, it makes you really wonder, is it really going to maintain the momentum of being a viable competitor to other drones on the market? Is Autel going to survive this? I mean, lots to think about.
I think you bring up some very good and very valid points. I mean, of course, it's not hard to imagine that with the coronavirus ongoing and continuing to spread through our country, that buying new drones is nowhere near the top of anybody's shopping list right now. I mean, people are worried about toilet paper, so by the time you get to a drone, you're probably at the bottom of that list. So I think sales in general would be hurt for drones right now for sure. The other point that you made, which I think is a good one as well, is that when you announce a new drone, people get excited and people get ready to potentially buy that new drone. And I think if you look at the product launches from DJI in the past, they would make sure that as soon as they do the official announcement, you can place your orders right then and there. And I think that works very effectively because people jump in, they place their orders, DJI starts shipping those drones quickly, and within a week, people have their hands on this new unmanned aircraft. If you now compare that to Autel Robotics and also to Skydio, you see what happens if you can't deliver. I mean, I've seen so many emails already from people who have canceled their Skydio orders because basically they're just tired of waiting to get their hands on that new drone. It's a very exciting drone, but if you order it late 2019 or early 2020, and you have to wait until the third or now maybe the fourth quarter before you get it, you're just not going to be as excited anymore. And I think the same problem is now happening with Autel as well, is that if you can place your order, but you can't get your hands on the drone, at some point your excitement is going to disappear. And then at the same time, new drones are going to be at the horizon and people are going to change their mind. And I think it hurts both Autel as well as Skydio. And I think this is another big difference where DJI honestly does a much better job. They make the announcements, they have their sites, their websites ready to go. People can place their orders and within a week they have them in their hands. And I think that's a key factor in making a successful introduction for a new drone into the market.
Yeah, wow. Hi, you bring up some really good points about Skydio. And, you know, your point about people losing their excitement when they're waiting a long period of time to get their drone. Well, how is that feeling exacerbated when people's wallets are getting thinner and thinner and people are losing jobs at a proportion that we have never seen before? Yeah. So, wow. You know, it's also interesting because a lot of these, even Autel and Skydio, perceived as a non-Chinese drone manufacturer, as we have learned over the last couple weeks, actually uses Chinese parts in all of their drones, which according to the Rick Scott and American Drone Security Act, if passed, would not even, we would not even be allowed to fly those drones. So this big push for anti-Chinese drones and parts has really hit the denouement. It's really gone too far because, you know, these bills and now the executive order that's out there essentially inhibiting us from even using a Chinese-made SIM card would really, really kill the industry. And these companies that are pushing for American-made drones, well, name a single company, Alta included or FreeFly included, that makes a drone that is 100% non-Chinese. You won't find one. It doesn't exist. So I think this is a good opportunity to point out that even though Skydio and Evo are losing their momentum and creating a competitor to the Phantom, I think it's extremely imperative to also remember that these companies were pushing avidly for American-made drones. I mean, you heard me even say American-made drones, but I don't think I realized the lack of technical acumen by our congressmen and women and our senators, and knowing that a security problem in drones requires a key thing. What is that? It's an internet connection. So the FAA kind of doubled down on stupid and said, no, let's internet connect all the drones with remote ID. Well, doesn't that just cause a larger security problem? And how the hell are you guys going to create an American manufacturer when there's a stay-at-home order? So I think this issue with Autel, really runs down the gamut as far as the industry is concerned and as far as how this is going to affect the industry as a whole. And I bring this up because I hope literally every single person fights the Rick Scott bill, fights the other American Drone Security Act, which we think is dead, but we don't know. We've got to communicate and educate with our leaders. And honestly, Haye, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to vote for anyone under the age of 50 ever again, because if people don't understand basic technology and security, how are we supposed to expect them to keep us safe?
I think, 2019 was a lackluster year for drones. I think 2020 now turns out to be even a more stressful year for the entire drone industry. And I know from Adam Bry from Skydio, one of the co-founders, that even though the Skydio is made or assembled here in the United States, and it contains many parts that are made in the United States as well, it's not 100% American made. There are still components in there that do come from China. And that's probably one of the most American drone companies you can find right now. If we cannot use any Chinese-made parts, then the drone industry will have a big problem, and I don't think any drone would qualify, really.
Well, the drone industry would just go away overnight. It would be like flipping a light switch, which is interesting because coronavirus, I don't know what you're hearing, but it's like 50-50 from what we're hearing. Some people are exceeding, they're getting more and more drone jobs. I actually just got a call for 3 jobs north of me, I'm not going to say where, north of me right now, after a job I just completed. I've got members in Idaho who are literally have tripled their business in the wake of the coronavirus because social distancing is really easy, and you can advance social distancing with drone pilots. What do I mean? Well, roof inspections, again, Sky High Boise letting us know on Instagram how much business he's acquiring right now because an adjuster doesn't want to go to someone's house. But you know what? They'll park across the street, fly their house, get all the information they need, and voila. So now even construction companies are starting to see this. So it's really hard for me to really, typically, Haye, it's very easy for you and I to kind of get a sense of what's going on in the industry. You have particular data points and sources that you use, and I have particular sources and data that I use. But it's so 50-50 flip-flop right now. I'm hearing some businesses shuttering. I'm hearing major companies firing people. And then we're seeing companies like Pix4D launch 5 brand new industry-changing products this week. So, I mean, we're seeing the whole gamut here. But one thing is clear. If either of those bills go through, the Rick Scott bill, the American Drone Security Act, or the proposed or rumored executive order, well, it would kill the industry and game over when the coronavirus is actually helping some verticals of this industry.
Yeah, I think the coronavirus, for one, of course, the impact that it has on the economy in general, slowing everything down, forcing businesses to shut down, getting people to be laid off, of course, is not a good thing. I think the silver lining for the drone industry is that it also shows examples of how drones can be useful under these circumstances. And there's a lot of stories out there, a lot of examples where drones are now being used in a way and at a scale that they've never been used before. For instance, by all these different police departments around the world in different countries. In a way, it's a great opportunity for drone applications to be showcased and say, hey, this is what we can do with drones. This is how we can get vaccines to people in remote areas. This is how we can help control the streets. This is how you keep your firemen, your policemen safe when they don't have to approach people that might be infected. So I think for drones specifically, there might be a silver lining. I think, of course, I don't think, I know, of course, that for the economy in general and for most regular people, it's a disaster because it slows everything down tremendously.
Yes, it's been, I will say, here at Drone U, we've had to pivot a lot. We've had to offer more live classes. There's a live class actually going on right now with Vic Moss, his aerial photography class. Maybe that's why he didn't text me back. I was like, why didn't he text me back? I offered him a drone job. Like, why didn't he text me back? So
He's busy.
Yeah, he sure is. He sure is. But Haye, it's really interesting to see what is going on. I mean, it really is. I think the silver lining in all of this is that remote ID is going to be delayed and delayed and delayed. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm literally watching half of the FAA team, answering polls on Facebook on the daily. So, I know with these stay-at-home orders, work is really limited. And when, these typical parents are now distracted by their kids, I think productivity is going down. But you know what?
Oh.
While that may be bad, family life and business life and morality and love and happiness, it's going up. We're spending time with each other.
That's the life I'm living right now. My wife works from home for the last 3 weeks. The kids are working from home. They're going to school from home with online education and stuff. They need help. They need supervision and guidance because the real teachers can't do it. So that means that the kids basically get at best 50% of all their stuff done. And of course, my wife's productivity and mine are impacted at the same time. And this is just one family. Just imagine all the other families out there that deal with the same stuff. It slows us down tremendously.
Yeah, it sure does. But anyway, moving into our next piece of drone news. It looks like, how do I say this? I struggled 3 times to say this because this next particular article I wanted to bring up to you because I myself have not really wrapped my head around how I feel or the position that I want to take on this particular issue. Now, here at Drone U and the news show with Haye, we want to give you information so that you can really make your own opinion. You can make, your own discernment. But Haye, I can't figure out for the life of me, am I happy that police are asking drone pilots to help them in the wake of the coronavirus? Or is the little boy who grew up in D.C. around government and understanding the importance of, federalism and the importance of the Constitution and, all of the freedoms that we've known, the Bill of Rights, right? All of these things. So I have the little devil on my shoulder being like, go do the drone jobs for the police and the coronavirus. And then over here, it's like, no, this goes against everything you stand for. Yeah. So Haye, how do you feel about this next piece of drone news, which is all about how drone pilots are being hired at record levels and drones are being used at record levels to aid public safety in the wake of coronavirus?
Yeah, I think in the last year or so, a lot of the police departments have learned and figured out how drones can make them so much more effective. I mean, if you look at the Chula Vista Police Department in California, I think they, if I remember correctly, were 130 arrests that were made with help of drones. They've had situations where drones typically get to the scene of an accident or an incident faster than police officers get. We've seen drones being used to scan crowds in China, try to measure people's temperatures. So if you're afraid of a police-controlled state, then I can see that people would be worried about drones and the role that drones can play under those conditions. However, on the flip side, drones can also, of course, be used for good. And that's something we want to promote on DroneXL. And I know you guys at Drone U are big proponents of that as well. Drones can be used to fight the coronavirus by communicating to people on the streets that, hey, you should probably be inside. If you don't have any essential business to go about, then you really shouldn't be walking in that park. Or cover your mouth, wear one of those masks. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can communicate to people quicker and more effectively while keeping your police officers safe if you use a drone. And that's exactly what we've been seen happening in France, in China, in Spain, and now, of course, we see it happening in Western Australia as well. Most previous examples that I've seen, they use DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise drones with a little loudspeaker mounted on it. This one in Australia is the first one that I've seen that looks a little bit more serious and potentially more scary as well, with like a real big full-size loudspeaker, flashing police lights. I mean, the DJI Matrice 200-210 series is an imposing drone already. If you start mounting these kind of equipment and pieces of technology on it, it becomes a very imposing drone. Very effective as well. This one also is outfitted with the Zenmuse Z30 camera, which is the one with that incredible zoom lens. So from great distances. You can zoom in and spot exactly what it is that you're looking for. Yeah, it's the latest example of a police drone that I've seen that has been outfitted this way, and it does bring up the question as to, are drones being used for good, or should we be a little worried about how these drones are going to be used in the future?
Yeah. Well, if it's helping police officers, because I actually just trained a bunch of them yesterday. We just finished another drone mapping boot camp class here at DroneU. Live telecast class went great. Actually had more people in that class than any other in-person mapping class we've ever done. But if it's helping police officers maintain distance, I think it's great. There's obviously a fine line, though, about how they are used, and the responsibility to use them is high. And I would just ask anyone in public safety, what do they say? Move forward with caution, or I forget what it is. But long story short is, it's a really fine line. I think it's great that it's helping social distancing. It's helping pilots, but pilots out there, police officers, be careful. Evidence gathering when you don't have probable cause can be a problem. We also want to be really careful about kind of the symbolism of using drones against people and what that would do to the industry as a whole. So I would ask you, really think about that and think about how you do these operations. I know people all the time, Haye, are telling me, Paul, you really got to think about how you work with people, how you do these things. Well, I would turn that back on everyone listening right now and saying, if you're using drones in the wake of coronavirus, be cognizant of the perception that you're giving off and try to represent the industry in a way that would benefit you in the long term. I think some of us have now been around long enough to see how public perception can totally affect the number of jobs that we get and how easy it is, or the culpability of finishing those jobs. So I think this is really important. But in this next piece of news, to get the mood lighter, to end the news show on a lighter note here, Haye, it seems like, I have to say, when I saw this story at first, when you showed this to me, and someone besides myself is saying, you have got to learn how to fly in attitude mode, do you know how happy that made me? So it looks like in this next piece of drone news, 2 pilots are learning the hard way on just why you need to learn spatial awareness. And may I recommend even becoming a DroneU member and taking the drills and exercise course to master attitude mode. But Haye, tell us one unfaithful story of what happened with 2 Phantoms and the pilot. Yeah. This already sounds bad, by the way.
This was a mapping project that happened not too far from where I live, and it took place not last week, but the week before, and kind of ventured into the weekend as well, where a less experienced drone pilot was flying a drone for a mapping mission, and the mapping mission went totally fine. Drone did exactly what it needed to do, flew the entire area the way it was programmed to do, but then when it completed the job, rather than flying back to home, it flew exactly the opposite direction. And it was very weird. The pilot in control, first, by the time he realized what was happening, the drone was already well on its way, going in the wrong direction, also being pushed that way by the wind. Meanwhile, on the app on his phone, it seemed as if the drone was coming towards him. Now, this guy obviously did not know how to switch to Atti Mode and take control and bring the drone back safely. So the drone just kind of kept flying in the wrong direction towards a hill on the other side of a not too large, but still kind of substantial valley, I guess. And by the time I got there, he told me that to the left of the power line, far into the distance, about half a mile to maybe a mile away, he said, you see that group of tall trees over there? That's where I last saw my drone. I'm like, oh. So anyway, so we hang around.
The walk of shame.
Yeah, so we hang around and I talk to him a little bit more, try to get some more information and try to get a sense for how precise his observations were. By that time also the guy who was actually in charge of the project was there as well. And they still had some missions to fly, so they kept flying. And I said, well, you know what, I'll just walk out there and who knows, maybe I get lucky, maybe I'll find it. So it was kind of tricky. It was when I walked to the other side, you kind of go through that valley, and now you're on the other hill sloping up, and you lose all your bearings because the power line that they mentioned, that transmission tower, I could no longer see. You're walking into the woods, and at some point I realized, okay, the last visual they had was the drone facing upwards to the sky, and you saw some smaller branches indicating that it might be stuck in a tree. But it could also be the case that the drone had already fallen out of the tree. So I started not looking at treetops only, but also at the ground around me. And I kind of kept walking into that forest, at some point feeling a little stupid almost that I was even trying to find a drone, because this is worse than trying to find a needle in a haystack. But sure enough, further up, I meet up with the two other people in that same drone crew, and we discuss our plans, and we kind of walk around, and all of a sudden I see the Phantom 4 stuck in a tree about 125 foot higher than where we were standing. So initially we were excited. We're like, hey, this is our lucky day. We should probably go out and buy New York State lottery tickets this afternoon, thinking that this is incredible. But then, of course, we were faced with the second challenge: is how do you get a Phantom 4 out of a white oak tree that's that tall? Because it's not something you can easily climb into. You have no way of reaching that drone. So we came up with the plan to use the second drone and see if we could fish the first drone that was stuck in the tree out of that tree with a bungee cord setup. And it was far from ideal. Of course, the bungee cords are not easy to attach. They're flexible. So there's all kinds of things that could go wrong there, I guess. But we gave it a shot. It was also windy, so the drone in the tree was moving, as well as the other drone trying to hover above. And what you also realize is when the drone is so far up, it's very hard to judge distances precisely. You can look at the app to see if you position on top of the other drone, but that doesn't give you any information as to how far too high or too low you physically are. So it was very much touch and go. At some point, of course, the bungee hook hooked onto a part of that tree branch instead of the drone that needed to be rescued. And as the pilots tried to fly away and pull the drone away from that situation, of course, it shot right into the tree next to it. So all of a sudden, we doubled our problem. Now we had two different Phantom 4s stuck at 125 feet high in two different trees. So at that point, we were not quite sure what to do next. This was on a Friday afternoon. It's getting colder. It's not quite getting dark yet, but we're running out of time. And also the weather forecast for Saturday looked pretty bad, as it was going to be a 100% chance of rain starting on Saturday in the afternoon. Luckily, the guy who was doing this project, his brother, is a professional tree climber. And even though he lived 5 hours north of where we were, this guy convinced his brother to get in the car, drive down. And sure enough, Saturday morning, I go back to that same forest. And all of a sudden, there's this professional tree climber with his entire outfit ready to scale that white oak. And I watched him go up. And it's pretty incredible because it's high and quite technical, I guess, to do. But he had no problem. He got up there and was able to use a pole saw to kind of shake and cut the drone out of the tree. So then we had one down. He then climbed into the second tree to rescue the second drone. And both of the drones ended up falling out of the tree in a bit of a muddy, rocky soil underneath the trees. Both drones were damaged, luckily not too severely. So if you kind of switch some parts out, at least you'd have one working drone. And I think the other one is going to be covered under insurance. So in that sense, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, the number one lesson I think I've heard you tell to people is that you need to know how to fly a drone in Atti Mode and how to switch from manual flight into Atti Mode quickly, which is something that the Phantom 4 drone is one of the few, I think, that allow you to do that. Is a skill that you really need to practice. And had this drone pilot known how to do that, the first drone pilot, then this story would never have happened this way, I'm sure.
Do you remember from Flight Mastery in Denver when we did the orientation loss drill?
Yeah.
Do you see the relationship between that and this particular story?
Sure. For sure. I think, in this case, you had a not so experienced drone pilot flying the drone, and he was then left alone, which in normal situations, it's not ideal, but it probably would have been just fine. Of course, that's exactly when something like this happens, and he had no idea to switch he didn't even know there was an Atti Mode. So it wasn't even a question of how do I switch quickly into that mode. He wasn't even aware of that a mode like that existed. Had he known that, then yes, he would have switched, flown the drone back manually, and everything would have been fine. Of course, in that case, we would not have had this adventure story and this lesson that we can now share with our audience. So that's a good thing that came out of it.
Couldn't agree more, Haye. Well, lots of news this week for sure. Lots of news this week. And excited to be kind of back in a rhythm with you. So want to say, first of all, thank you for sticking with the news show, because it's been a lot of fun. People getting a lot of information from it, and it seems to be a favorite. So before we go, everyone, if you have been enjoying or liking the show, you've gotten some piece of valuable information out of it, do Haye and I a favor. It doesn't cost any money, but do Haye and I a favor. Go to DroneXL.com. Check out his page, read an article or two. If you're feeling really loving, really giving, leave him a review. Leave the show a review on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you download the show. Yep. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, because it helps Haye and it helps myself. So if you're feeling like you want to pay it forward, this is a great time to take the time to pay it forward. Also, just a heads up, Drone U will be having more live stream classes, and I just wanted to announce that really quick. So make sure to pay attention to the events section on the Drone U website. We're going to be having another public safety class, which covers Pix4D React and a search program. I just found a new search program. I'm going to be trying it out here shortly, so I'll let you guys know about that. But also, we're going to be having our drone mapping bootcamp again in our advanced aerial videography. Haye, I have to say, there are some benefits to online live telecast training, and I've learned that because this whole week, that's all I've been doing, and that's why I seem tired, because I've been doing podcast-like material, but for 36 hours already this week. That being said, there are so many benefits to it. Like, for example, every single person can see my screen while I'm flying. They can see how I set up my missions. They can see how I do all these things. And here at Drone U, we were already prepared to do live streaming at the nth degree. So I have to say, there are some really good things coming out of the wake of the virus. And I just also want to take the time to say thank you to everyone who has supported us. Thank you to everyone who's in the Drone U community. Thank you to every Drone U member. Thank you to everyone who's even spoken positively about us or given us the opportunity to impress them. It means the world to us. Why? Because we genuinely enjoy making your life better. So Haye, thank you again, my friend. I appreciate you as well.
Thanks for having me on the show, Paul. One thing to point out, dronexl.co, not .com, unfortunately. So if people do want to check out the news stories, please go there. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, every crisis always has a silver lining somewhere. Sometimes you have to look a little harder to find it, but typically it will make you rethink how you do things and force you into adjusting and adapting. And I think 9 out of 10 times you come out better, stronger, and smarter. So stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next week on the next show.
Yeah, stay safe yourself, Haye. I was worried about you for a little while. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone. That's going to do it for us today. You're watching another Ask Drone U news episode. From the Flying Dutchman and myself, that'll do it for us today.
Shot of my yacht, it's all I got. I'm all alone on the water. Don't let me flex these